This episode is brought to you by Squarespace. Just kidding. No, it isn't. I have 30 subscribers. This is Hot Drop, where we bring you premier PUBG analysis and scalding hot drops. Today we've got a whole lot of news, DevCom, new maps, secret videos, and happy little accidents. I'm Dano, your host, and let's get into it. Let's kick this puppy off with a little bit of housekeeping. So you might have noticed right away that this video is a little bit shorter than last week's video. And maybe you've even scrolled ahead and skipped to the end and seen there's no hot drop. So you might say, Dano, where are my hot drops? And I'll say, be calm, child. They're coming. And they're coming more often. Because I'm breaking off hot drops into their own separate episodes. I've noticed that an hour-long episode is kind of a time sink for some people. It's a bit of an investment as far as sitting down and watching the whole thing from start to finish. So what I'm going to do is break off hot drops into separate episodes, and I'm trying to release those a little bit more often. So I'll still do the weekly episodes where I cover news and updates, and then scattered in and amongst there will be some hot drop episodes. I've also noticed that hour-long videos take a really long time to render and post, so I'm trying to get away from that. So if I can cut these up into smaller, more easily digestible chunks, it's good news for everyone. So if you disagree with this, hit me up. Twitter, Hot Drop Podcast, Gmail, Hot Drop Podcast. Just let me know what you think. I'm really open to feedback and suggestions and hearing what you guys have to say. So now, on with the show. Every week I talk player counts. I was surprised when we hit 300,000. I talked about 500,000, how amazing that was. Well, yeah, I just gotta stop acting so surprised. We're at 715,000 people, guys. This is just stupid at this point. But on the bright side, my bold prediction of 1 million by the end of the year is looking pretty good. Pretty good. August 6th, we were at 574,000. Now we're at 715. Where are these people coming from? Like, honestly, who is playing this game? How is it still growing as fast as it is? Who is buying all these copies? I'm convinced that some rich guy over in Dubai is buying like 40,000 copies a week. Just for fun. Just, you know, passing them out to every household in the kingdom. But for real, guys, we got 135,000 left to beat Counter-Strike. And we're closing in fast. We're closing in fast. We added that number in 3 weeks. Who's to say 3 weeks from now we will take the number 2 spot? I'm going to stop acting so surprised, but honestly, props to Bluehole. You guys are killing it. The game's incredible. Players are surging. We're taking on the number 1 spot. Looking at you, Dota. Let's go. Not a lot of game updates to cover today, but there is one piece of news that is a little disappointing, but not something I can really be mad about. On August 16th, they announced that they're changing the schedule of the patches. So up until now, they've done weekly updates, which were small bug fixes and minor enhancements, and then every month they would do a very large content update where they would put out things like new weapons, vehicles, and major changes to the game. They announced that they're changing their patch schedule to improve how they work on the game, as well as set realistic expectations for players. They announced that they will not have the scheduled weekly or monthly patches rolling out as often as they were before. And the reason for this is that they've found that internally they're being rushed to finish certain features. They have a very short QA test time between pushing updates from test to live, and they realized that it was resulting in a lot of problems. Bugs were being found on the test server, but because their process was to only have it there for a day, they would push those bugs to live without having any time to fix them. If you think about a couple patches ago, we had that major network lag issue where people couldn't connect and they were crashing middle of the game. There was this famous clip where someone was about to take out the final kill and got a network error and crashed. So I'm glad that they're taking the time to really QA these things a little bit more to provide a better product for us and have a little bit less stress for them. It makes sense that they've decided to hold back a little bit more and QA these patches a little bit more. This way they can focus on really baking this update and getting it ready for release and knowing that there's not going to be any game-breaking issues when they put it out.
They didn't announce what the new schedule is going to be, which kind of sucks. We don't really know when to expect new updates now. They just said it's not as often as every week. I'm hoping the monthly patch still comes out on time, but again, we don't really know when the next update is going to be. We just know that when we do get it, it's going to be a higher quality patch with fewer bugs up front. They wrapped up this blog post by saying they want to assure us that they're still on track with the release. They want to emphasize that they're not winding down the development or being complacent because they know how people get on the internet. They understand when people go crazy when they don't get an update for a couple weeks at a time. So they say they have a lot of work to do and they want this game to be released with as many fun, rich, enjoyable features and mechanics as possible. So they will continue to be hard at work and always listening to our feedback. Again, I'm kind of bummed, but there's no reason for me to be upset. They've proved themselves to us. We know that they're capable of putting out extremely high quality content in a very tight schedule. Giving themselves more time to QA just means a better product for us, and we can't be upset about that. In other news, we learned that Microsoft is publishing PUBG. Huge congrats to PlayerUnknown and the Bluehole team. Unfortunately, to me, this means that there's no PS4 version coming in the foreseeable future, which is a bummer for all my PS4 dudes out there, but on the other hand, I know that Microsoft knows what they're doing. And if there's any company that can take this game to the next level, it's a company like Microsoft. They need this very strong backing to propel them to the next level. PlayerUnknown announced that this collaboration will help Bluehole accelerate console development while maintaining quality across platforms and provide resources ranging from technical to sales and marketing. Having extra resources to promote and work on this game is nothing but a positive in my book. And seeing that a company as big as Microsoft trusts in Bluehole, that's huge for me too. We have no update on an Xbox release date, but it's still on track for a late 2017 release. Lots of news today. Over to GamesCom. So the GamesCom Invitational is getting all of the attention right now. It is an invite-only tournament, hence the name Invitational, and runs from August 23rd to the 26th. Some of the biggest esports teams are there, including Cloud9, Liquid, and Luminosity. And there's actually a prize pool of $350,000. So this is a pretty sweet tournament. We have a pretty decent prize pool, and this is going to bring a lot of exposure to the game because it's being streamed all over the place. Twitch, Facebook, YouTube, and Mixer. I've never heard of Mixer, but they've been promoting it pretty heavily on their Twitter feed. But what I really want to talk about is DevCom. DevCom was a developer conference that happened before the tournament on August 21st. PlayerUnknown was there, and he gave a few talks about the upcoming features of the game. A Reddit user by the name of Slider with 6 R's, attended the event, and he gave a quick rundown of the things that he thought was interesting, and I want to share those with you. I searched around the internet for a little while, but I wasn't able to find a video of PlayerUnknown actually talking about these things. So I'm going to take this guy's word for it. I mean, who would lie on the internet, right? The first thing that PlayerUnknown talked about was building the new map. They talked about how it's an enormous effort and that it takes about 6 to 9 months to build one from scratch. They try to do things faster than that. For example, I know that people have pointed out that they take elements from, or assets from the Unreal Engine marketplace and use those in the live game. I'm no map maker, but I know that it takes a really long time to build assets, textures, buildings, swing sets, bushes, stuff like that. So if they can use these things that already exist in the Unreal Engine marketplace and just plop them in their game, that will make the map building process go a lot faster. So I know that they're doing some of that now, and I assume they're also doing some of these things for the new maps as well. They said there will be map-specific vehicles, which I found pretty cool. I'm thinking at the snow map, they mentioned that one of the maps will have a mountain with snow, maybe something like a snowmobile, or if you're Sarah Palin, a snow machine. There's also the desert map, so I'm thinking things like dune buggies, maybe jeeps with like bigger wheels on them. I don't know what else you might find in a desert area. I know there's a screenshot of it out there with a bicycle in it. And that could be something that's added as well. More of a dirt bike style motorcycle instead of the road motorcycle that we have now. Just little things like that to make the map a little more robust. You know, to think vehicles to fit the theme of the map will make you feel more immersed in the world of that map, and things will just flow together and fit together better.
Speaking of new maps, we do have a screenshot that he shared, and I'm going to do my best to explain it to people who are listening to the show. This is a work in progress screenshot of the desert map. So a few things I noticed right off the bat. The first is that this is a city, and this is a city that we haven't seen before in Battlegrounds. There's skyscrapers that are like 8 to 10 stories high. There's a lot more density to the city as well. Like we see that the buildings are very close together and they're very high, which sort of adds to the verticalness of the map. There are fire escapes that run down the length or the height of the building. So it looks like you're possibly able to access every floor of these 8 or 9 story buildings, which to me could be a little tedious, honestly. If you're trying to hunt someone down and you don't know which floor they're on, it might take a really long time to find them, and it would be a really long, drawn-out battle. But I don't know. We'll see how that plays out. Anyway, as far as the skyscrapers go, I can immediately see that there is some copying and pasting happening here. We see this one building in the foreground. It has 2 water tower-like canisters on the top of it. I can count 1, 2, 3, 4. We'll call it 4 right off the bat. 4 versions of that exact same building that I can see within this screenshot. We have the smaller, more square building next to it on the left, and I can see that building at least 3 times, 4 times. So it's not terrible, but from this top-down view, it's easy to see that they copied and pasted these buildings to try to make the area feel more dense while putting in less work. I'm okay with the devs using this technique if it means that we get a map, quicker, if they can use these kind of techniques to build a map faster and get it into our hands faster. But it does feel a little bit cheap, meaning that as soon as I've explored that one building, I know exactly what the layout will be, and as soon as I run into this building that occurs 5 other times within a square kilometer, it's not going to be anything new and exciting for me because I've already seen the full layout of the building and I know what to expect. But again, we don't really know what the interior of these buildings will look like, and we don't even know if this is what the map will look like. This is very obviously a work in progress, and they could completely change this by the time it's actually released. As far as the rest of the city goes, we see a smaller 1 or 2 story series of houses on the right. They run parallel to each other and sort of look like a motel. I'm imagining it's either one large house or possibly multiple apartments that are just connected. We see some pretty wide city streets, a little bit wider than I think we've seen so far, that have a lot of burned out cars. So these are great for cover, but I think what they're going for with this is more immersion. They're really going for the feel of the current map where there was a disaster that happened maybe and people needed to abandon the map, or it's like a setup city that's like a military testing ground. They're going for the feeling of a abandoned, empty, desolate, post-apocalyptic city. And I think it looks pretty good, honestly. We've got some new ground textures that are made up mostly of sand and rocks. We have some new assets like small bushes, new cactus-style trees. We have some big radio towers in the background. And all along the backdrop against the sky, we see some very tall red rocks. It looks like sort of like Colorado or Arizona, where you have the city that's sunk within a valley, and then it's surrounded by mountains. I don't know if that means that this is signaling the backdrop, or if it's like the edge of the map, or if these are rocks that you can actually get up onto. If that's the case, this map looks like it's going to be pretty big, but again, I'm not really sure. It sort of cuts out, like the screenshot sort of cuts out, so you can't really tell if there's anything beyond that, but as it stands right now, I think the map looks pretty good. It looks like they've done a lot of work to getting it really feel like a desolate wasteland and like a really nice abandoned city that's going to be the home of a lot of firefights. And this is just one city on a map. I'm pretty excited to see what else is in store and what other points of interest they'll have around here. Speaking of those new ground textures, we have some screenshots of some new technology that PUBG is using to really enhance the feel and look of the ground textures. Here's a before shot showing sort of like the ground, how it does have texture, but it's very smooth and doesn't really feel like it has 3D depth to it. And here's an after picture where you can see the new technology they're using to really add some shadows and depth and just better, nicer feel to the ground. It really looks like the rocks are there and real and not just like smoothed over textures. So this is just a kind of cool enhancement that they're adding to add a little more realism and just make the game prettier, which I'm all about. Moving on to some other tasty tidbits that PU dropped, he talked about the vaulting mechanic, and he said it's a very complex system, and it's going to take a little bit more time to implement. It's adaptable to the geometry, like we already know, and he showed some nice animation examples. You've probably already seen this video. This was posted by Tuner, who's a dev over at Bluehole, and it showcases how you can really hop over a variety of objects, both small and large. One of the things I wanted to point out is how you can cancel the animation, which is huge. You can jump up, grab a hold of a ledge, start to boost yourself up, but then if you start taking fire or you realize you don't want to climb up all the way, you can back out of the animation and fall back down to where you were. This is crucial, because if it was a more rigid animation, you would be forced to always climb up all the way once you start it. I'm really glad that they made it dynamic, and that if I start taking fire, or if I realize that I don't actually want to climb up there, I can quickly back out and fall back down to the ground. I hope they don't add a mechanic where you can hang onto a ledge with one hand and shoot a pistol with another hand. This isn't Splinter Cell, people. I really hope that they make this reasonable and just make you vulnerable when you're vaulting, because vaulting and climbing should be something that you put yourself at risk for. You should put your gun away, you should go through the animation, it should be slow. It should be something that's similar to jumping now, where you should not be able to hang onto a ledge or swing around a corner or hang off a roof and shoot through a window and then jump through that window. Like, this isn't an action movie, and I know that they've sort of moved that way a little bit in terms of how the vaulting works with jumping through windows, for example. But I really hope they don't add Splinter Cell-like elements here. I'm not Sam Fisher. Like, that doesn't really have a place in this game. And I don't see them adding that, and I just hope that they don't. If this is what the vaulting is actually going to look like, this is Assassin's Creed PlayerUnknown Battlegrounds Edition. I mean, this is sweet. He's hopping up and over obstacles with lightning speed, getting on top of the roof over at the firing range in this example, gathering up flags, tearing down wanted signs, and taking leaps of faith into hay. I mean, it doesn't really get any better than this. Here's another video straight out of Bluehole that, rumor has it, was not supposed to be shown. A Reddit user by the name of Midnight Rider 77 tuned into Smokey's stream, or Smokey, he's a dev at Bluehole, a couple nights ago when he started streaming at an odd time. He said he went on to watch and saw the last 5 to 10 seconds of this video before it ended, but he grabbed the VOD. It was deleted shortly after, so that's why we assume that it probably wasn't meant to be shown yet. But this is a video that shows vaulting, but on top of that, it shows fog, which is an awesome new weather mechanic. The fog looks great. It looks just like the rain, but instead we have some severely vision-limiting fog in the background. You can only see maybe 75-100 meters in front of you. This is going to really change the game in a couple ways. First off, obviously, is the fact that you just can't see enemies at a distance. People are going to blend in with the background, and it's going to be very hard to take fights at anything beyond about 100-150 meters. Second is that flash hiders are basically going to be a necessity. If you think about flash hiders now, they don't make much of a difference. The muzzle flash is very small in the daylight, it's pretty hard to see, so hiding it doesn't really make much difference. But in the fog, it's going to be reflecting off of the fog in the air, and it's going to make you very easy to spot as soon as you fire a weapon that doesn't have a flash hider on it. I'm pretty pumped for this fog mode, and it's going to look great when they finally implement zombies as well, if you're into that kind of thing. Flash hiders will also be very effective if they implement the night mode that they're prototyping right now. At DevCom, PlayerUnknown talked about a night mode that they're working on, and also the anti-gamma boosting measures that they'll implement in relation to that. So a night mode would be awesome. We haven't seen anything like this so far, and this would make possibly flashlights and night vision goggles, flares, different items that light up the world around you could be added to the game, and would make for some very interesting encounters. Think about seeing flashlights off in the distance as people walk through the fields, or night vision goggles you could use to spot people from further away. Or even like flares, like I mentioned before. You could use flare guns to shoot people, or you could use them to signal the location, or just light up the area if you need more vision on something. A first-person night mode would be downright scary, I think. It would be sick. I really hope they add a night mode as an option that you could toggle on, just like you could toggle on first person or third person modes. Stick that in that menu too. I know they're just beta testing it right now, and there's obviously the problem of people cranking up the gamma on their monitors to basically see everything. But I think they should really consider it. I think it would be a very fun game mode if everyone plays fair and everyone is really into it. A few other fun facts that he mentioned was that the pan being indestructible was actually an accident. That's hilarious. That's awesome. So they actually left it that way in the game, but it was by complete accident that the bullets could not penetrate the pan when you're wearing it. It's funny how accidents can become, the symbol of the game, basically. I mean, like everyone knows PUBG and pan goes together like lamb and tuna fish. So it's pretty funny to see that they didn't change it and they just left it as is. And finally, they have about 100 people working on the game in Korea and 15 in the USA. So they're a pretty small team, but they're doing a great job in cranking out a pretty sweet game that everyone seems to be crazy about right now. All 8 million some odd people that bought a copy. So that's about it for news out of DevCom. I wanted to talk a bit about the community. And there's been a lot of drama lately and a lot of negativity and stream sniping drama and Grims and Dr. Disrespect and blah blah blah. But I want to talk about the good side of the community. The side of the community that discusses the game. And the side of the community that gives ideas about how to make the game better. Believe it or not, these people are out there. They exist, and there's some really good content that's posted up on the subreddit. You just kind of have to dig through all the drama to get to it. This idea comes out of Reddit user Betrayus, and he or she came up with an idea for a new item quantity control box. This is the dialog that you see when you drag an item out of your inventory while holding control. When you do that today, you're prompted with a dialog that asks you how many of the current item you want to drop, and you can input an amount and click drop. This is the current system. So right now you have a button on the left side that says minimum, and a button on the right side that says maximum. And the middle is where you specify how many you want to drop. There are a few problems with the current system. The first is that the maximum button is not helpful at all, because if I wanted to drop the maximum amount of an item, I would just drag it out of my inventory and not hold control at all. Second is that this box is not dynamic based on the type of item you're dropping. For example, if I'm dropping ammo, I would typically drop it in packs of 30. I would never drop just one bullet. The buttons on the dialog should change so that it's more user-friendly. Here's what he or she proposes. For ammo, you typically drop it in larger amounts. So the buttons, instead of minimum and maximum, should be -10 or +10 with a default of 1. That way, if you drag the item out of your inventory while holding control, this message will pop up and you can click drop to just drop 1, or you can quickly tap the +10 to add 10 to that number. So if you want to drop 30 rounds of ammo, you drag out the ammo while holding control, and then you press 10 3 times, and then you drop it. So now you've dropped 30 rounds. For other items, such as boosters and first aids, you're typically only going to drop 1 to 5, let's say. So you don't need an increments of 10, you can just do increments of 1. So instead of minimum and maximum, you have -1 or +1, and the default is, of course, 1. So you can quickly drag out the item while holding control, and then press +1, however many times you want, and then click drop. This eliminates the need to type in a number. This was the most annoying thing about the current system. So this new quality of life feature, I think, is an excellent proposition. I think these small tweaks are what's going to make this game feel more polished and have a more slick, easy-to-use UI. Another community member on Twitter by the name of Creative Grenade tweeted at PlayerUnknown and said, "I redesigned the main menu UI for fun. Let me know what you think." Well, Travis, I'm not PlayerUnknown, but if you're asking me, this is sick. This is a clean, very professional, very informative, and easy to understand UI. Check it out. This is slick, for real. I've said slick about 18 times in this podcast. So we've got all of the features that we understand and have learned from the first UI, which is the play button at the top left. We have the home, character, rewards, stats, and settings options. And then we have the BP points, which I think stand for battle points, and your username, all at the top left, all where we expect them to be. At the bottom left, we have the receive invites checkbox, which we can quickly toggle on and off, and then we can see how many friends are playing and how many friends are online. And I'm assuming the For Friends Playing Now link will actually open up the Friends menu and show you which friends are in game, and if you want to take it a step further, maybe how many are still alive in the game. That would be cool. Then he's got a really cool new backdrop, which looks like it's outside of maybe Severny, possibly. It's just a screenshot that's sort of faded, and it looks really nice. And it shows all of the members of his squad. All of their names are visible, along with a link to view their stats, whether they're ready or not ready, and an option to kick or block them. He even took it so far as to show the color of their markers in the game. So he didn't just take the old UI and turn it into something that looks better. He thought up new designs and new features, not just copying the old one and just transforming it to make it look nicer. Instead, he took what was there and added onto it, packing in more information but not making it feel cluttered or distracting. This is a very nice design. I'm pretty impressed by this. It looks very professional. He is listed as the party leader, and he shows a link to change the leader as well. He's got the close button and the reload button at the top right, which is to be expected. And everything just feels so much newer and so much cleaner, and it looks great. I think a change to the UI is really something they need because it's the first thing that new players see when they enter the game. You want to make a good first impression that the game is polished and easy to pick up and play, and I think a new UI really instills confidence in the user. The great news is, PlayerUnknown responded, and he said, "I think you'll be pleasantly surprised when you see what we have been working on internally for the last few months." So it's coming. Maybe not exactly like this design, but it's on the way. They've thought about the fact that the UI sucks, and they're going to fix it. So Bluehole, if what you have falls through, why don't you just copy and paste this one? I'm sure Travis wouldn't mind. Awesome design, my dude. And one last thing. If you guys want to record your hot drops, there's a much easier way to do that now, if you have an NVIDIA graphics card. Shadowplay is now integrated right into the game, so this makes it so the average person can easily share highlights without setting up a streaming or recording program. Once you update to the latest NVIDIA drivers, you can go to your settings in-game and go to Video Capture, and under here you can select NVIDIA Shadowplay Highlights. This makes it so that when you get kills, die, win a match, or knock out yourself or your enemies, the Shadowplay highlights will automatically save a gameplay clip that you can quickly edit before uploading to your favorite site. This is a very, very smart marketing move on Bluehole's part. This will make it so that Battlegrounds clips are all over the place. The clips will be much easier to make, and therefore a lot more people will be inclined to share them, which means more exposure for the game. But for the average user, this is just a great usability feature to be able to record your gameplay in a much easier way. Thank you guys for tuning in and watching episode 11 of my hot drop journey. I'll be posting up the hot drops in just a little while, so stay tuned for that. And I'm looking forward to episode 12. We got some gameplay footage coming that I've been teasing for a really long time. I really want to get some good analysis with Lemon John and possibly have some new guests on the show that you guys haven't heard yet. Don't forget, if you want to contact me, you can find me at hotdroppodcast@gmail.com or follow me on Twitter @hotdroppodcast. So, until then, I'll see you in game.